We are just about a week away from the start of a special legislative session in Austin. This comes after the governor called that session because a lot of priority bills were not addressed in the regular session that wrapped up at the end of May. To talk about that, we are joined by Scott Braddock, editor of the Quorum Report. Scott, as always, thanks for being here with us. I want to really give people an idea of what's going to be discussed in this session, what topics, what issues. So talk about the start of the session and what you think is going to be really the main topics.
Well, the governor has indicated he's going to take these one topic at a time, and it's not going to be a repeat of what happened in 2017. You remember the only special session that Governor Abbott has presided over so far is that one a couple of years ago, actually more than that, in 2017, when he put 20 items on the call for a 30-day special session. That included the bathroom bill and a whole lot of other controversial issues. Only about half of them passed, and the bathroom bill was not one of them. It didn't make it. This time around, the governor says he wants to tightly control the schedule, which is why I do think that they're going to get started next week on the 8th. And this could be not one, not two, but maybe 3 or 4 special sessions as we go through the rest of the year.
Now, at the end of the regular session, the governor said that he had basically taken care of anything regarding the electric grid. There seems to be some miscommunication between Abbott and the lieutenant governor. Do we expect that there'll be more about the electric grid in this special session?
This is a point of disagreement between the Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, and the governor. You may have seen there was an op-ed submitted by the Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, in the Dallas Morning News this week, where he was making the argument that there should be more done when it comes to the electricity market and the electricity grid itself in Texas. Governor Abbott has said, as you noted, Tim, that, look, everything that needed to be done, that it got done during the regular session. At least that's the governor's opinion. So the governor's the guy who gets to make the call. And I think if it's a conflict between the two of them, it's not going to happen. But to further answer Myra's question, I think you're going to see over the next few months items on the call like critical race theory, which, of course, very controversial, an elections, quote, integrity bill. That's what Republicans call it. Democrats call it voter suppression, and also the targeting of transgender youth in sports and high schools across Texas.
A lot of those bills certainly contentious. They are hot button issues. And all this is happening at a time when the governor vetoed the legislative budget, which essentially means that a lot of the staff involved in the legislature, they're not getting paid. So can you explain who is not getting paid right now because of that? And is this something, that budget, do you think that's something that has got to be addressed during this session?
An unprecedented move by the governor. This is a real encroachment by the executive branch on the legislative branch. And what I mean by that is it has never happened before that the governor canceled out funding for the legislative branch and their staff, which is what the governor did by vetoing Article 10 of the Texas budget, which actually everybody's being paid right now. And this is where it turns into leverage. The people who may not get paid coming up after September when the new budget would take effect, that would be the staffers in legislative offices, something called the Legislative Budget Board, which is sort of the accountants for the legislature, as well as legislative counsel, which is their attorney. That's their attorney's office, basically. And so those kinds of things need to be funded for legislating to happen, for them to actually make laws. There has been a lawsuit, or actually a filing. It's not really a lawsuit, but a filing. Democrats and some others are asking the Texas Supreme Court to void that veto by the governor so that the pay for those people can continue past September. And one reason they would want to do that is, for one, the legislature doesn't work for Governor Abbott. They're not his employees. They're the employees of all Texans, just like Governor Abbott works for all Texans. These are equal branches of government. For him to do that, I think there's a legitimate question. It's in front of the Texas Supreme Court now. And even the all Republican, the entire Supreme Court in Texas is Republican justices, but they're still taking it seriously. They have asked for a response, from Governor Abbott and his folks before the special session actually starts.
I don't want to get too much into the partisan politics here, but some would question, why is this special session starting on July 8th, going into a weekend? You seem to have a theory about that.
Well, it seems pretty clear to me. July 8th is the date that this special session is set to start. The governor, of course, is the only one who can say when it starts and what topics will be addressed. The very next day in Dallas, CPAC, the big conservative political action conference, that starts in Dallas. And you've got the President Trump show. You had it today with Governor Abbott on the border with former President Trump. And in Dallas, it'll be the same thing. Trump is actually the first speaker and the last speaker. at CPAC. So it's all about Trump. And, this whole question of addressing elections laws in Texas and in other states as well, but we'll talk about Texas since that's what we do here. In Texas, you have Republicans who want to, and I put it in 3 words, they want to avenge Trump somehow. And the fact that they haven't worked out the somehow yet, that the speaker, the governor, and the lieutenant governor, they were never on the same page during the regular session. That's why that big elections bill, Senate Bill 7, which you covered so well on KSAT, that's why it all fell apart. And the Democrats were in position to walk out at the end of the session and kill that legislation. What form it will be in, after this coming weekend, after the legislative session, special session gets going again, and multiple special sessions to come, we'll see what form it takes. But it doesn't seem that the Republican leadership is on the same page still. And we're, going into July now of 2021.
Let's talk about that move by Democrats at the end of the regular session. They staged that walkout as part of a strategy to avoid talking about a bill that Democrats largely did not believe in. Now they're being brought back to discuss likely that very issue. So in your mind, do you think we're going to see any of this political strategizing in some of these big moves the way we saw at the end of the regular session?
Myra, it's a great question. I would love to be a fly on the wall when the Democrats are meeting privately about what they're going to do. Are they actually going to show up in Austin for this special session when one topic after another is probably going to come from the governor that they don't agree with, even addressing? But back to the question of what form this elections bill should be in. Look, we didn't even know until the last 72 hours of session what that bill was going to look like. It included things like cracking down on what they call souls to the polls in the African-American community when they go early vote on Sundays. It also included a provision that would make it easier for judges to overturn elections with little to no evidence at all. And you had Republicans throwing each other under the bus after the session was over and saying they weren't even sure how that language got into the bill. And I think it comes back to this question. What is that bill supposed to look like? 10 years ago in 2011, when voter ID was passed by the Texas legislature, it was a very straightforward proposal. It was bitterly partisan and it was hotly contested and debated, but everybody knew what we were talking about. And like I say, we're going into July here in 2021, and we still don't know from Republican leadership, from the governor, lieutenant governor, or the speaker, what they want that elections bill to look like. Huge question. The speaker has said instead of a huge bill, he'd like to see smaller bills that address maybe 1 or 2 pieces of Texas election law rather than trying to tackle the whole thing. He thinks that might be a better way to do it.
We'll see what form this all takes in just about a week when the special session starts on July 8th. Scott Braddock with the Quorum Report. Thanks for being here.
Always great to be with you.
Thank you. And we'll be right back.